Hi there guys, Tom Quayle here. Welcome back to the Solo YouTube channel. For anybody that's new here, this is the official channel for our app Solo. I say this is David Beebee and I'm Tom Quayle, as I mentioned earlier. We designed the app Solo and this is the channel where we upload weekly video content to help you guys get the most out of the app. As usual, make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons below and of course that bell notification icon to make sure you never miss any more of our content. Now, this is an unusual series of videos that we're shooting today because we're back having both of us in the room, which is very unusual, feels very strange. But this is because we want to show you some cool things that you can do when you're practicing together with Solo. So we've got 2 copies of Solo here, and we're going to utilize either 1 copy or 2 copies together to show you some cool things that you can do. So in this video, we want to talk a little bit about why it's useful to practice as a pair when you're utilizing Solo. There's some big benefits to this. So I'm actually gonna let you, Beebee, talk a little bit about why you found, not just for Solo, but just generally, it's useful for you to practice with other people. It's fairly obvious, I guess, but why it's useful to practice with other people as opposed to on your own.
Yeah, so it was hugely beneficial for me to be able to interact with someone else, playing with someone who's a lot better than me. So if you are out there and you're practicing, if you can find someone else to actually work together with, it's hugely beneficial, and if they're better than you, even better. Everything that we're doing today is dependent on using the audio interface. I just need to say that. If you need to know more about audio interfaces, we've got many videos on that, so you can link to those in the description. But yeah, what we're going to do is go through some of the kind of exercises and kind of practice things that I've worked on a lot, both on my own and with other people, with Tom and other guitar players. I got into a big phase when I was really getting into this, of just jamming and playing with other guitarists, and I can't stress it enough, just how much it just kicks you up a notch, kicks you in the arse to you want to play and raise to the level, or you want to aspire to raise to the level of the person that you're sitting across from. And it doesn't matter if it doesn't happen, the very nature of you trying will just drag you up a little bit.
So yeah, one of the requests that we get a lot with Solo from people in support is that they would like Solo to be able to play the chord that they're playing intervallic functions over. So effectively have a supporting or accompanying role at the same time. And the reason a lot of people want this is because obviously it gives you harmonic context for the intervallic functions that you're playing. And that's really important because your oral skills will improve and your confidence in terms of hearing those intervallic functions over the chords that you're playing over. Now, at the moment, Solo doesn't do that. That is something we would like to incorporate, but there's a great thing that you can do if you're playing as a duo here. Now, it doesn't have to be 2 guitar players, of course. It could be actually any other accompaniment instrument, so say a piano, for example. So long as one of you, in this case Beebee, is plugged into an audio interface and is going into this iPad Pro here. So Beebee's plugged into a Fractal Audio FM3 running in. He is then isolated from anything that I would play. So what I can do is we can both look at the screen. I can play the chords whilst Beebee is playing the intervallic functions. So in effect, he's practicing his intervallic function visualization. I can also be thinking about that, of course, as I'm kind of accompanying. I can at that time work on maybe my voice leading for my chords, or I could just literally accompany him just so he's got some harmonic context. It's probably a good idea if you work on something in your chordal playing as you're doing this. But it's very beneficial for both of you because you're hearing the chord tones or the intervallic functions if you're playing other than chord tones, so some scale tones as well, that Beebee's playing on top of the chords that I'm playing, whilst I can work on my, chord voicings or my maybe drop 2 voicings or voice leading, whilst he is working on his intervallic functions and the visualization side of it. So it's not that one of you is taking this very kind of like passive role of just, I'm just a guy playing chords. You can practice too, but of course this gives you harmonic context and it's exceptionally good for your ears. So, as I say, what you would do is one of you would plug in via an audio interface into the actual, we've got 2 devices here. We're going to ignore this device. We're going to be looking at the iPad Pro for this particular video. You're going to be seeing all the intervallic functions come up on the video. Beebee's going to play them whilst I'm accompanying. Now, one quick thing to note here is that because Solo is not a time-based practice tool, okay, it's purposefully designed to not have time built into it. There's not going to be a metronome here. We're not going to be playing in time. I'm not going to be comping in that way, where I'm kind of providing some rhythmic framework, because that's not going to work, because Solo is not designed to act like a chord chart where you can just read through it in time. So what we're going to do is basically I'm going to accompany Beebee at the speed that he requires the accompaniment. Okay, that still gives me plenty of time to think about my chord voicings. But when he moves on and moves through, I'm then going to play a new chord for him, okay? So feel free when you're doing this. Let's say the chord was G minor 7. As Beebee's finding, let's say, root 3rd, 5th, and 7th, whatever he's going to be finding, feel free to, you don't need to play in time, but you can play multiple voicings as you so desire. So long as, you know, you're not doing anything too crazy, make sure you're playing the actual chord. When it moves on to the next chord, just take a breath as you would if you were using solo. You wait to see the next chord. You could, of course, if I just tap start here, you could, of course, look at the next chord as well to get some idea of what the next chord was going to be. But effectively, when there's no time here, we're just going to be taking a breather between each chord and we're working at his pace. You're effectively in the accompaniment role, not a passive accompaniment role, but an accompaniment role, and you're working to the person who's playing the intervallic functions.
What you could do there is, if you wanted to be a little bit more intentional about what's on the screen, is you could voice that chord with that note in the bass.
I didn't even think about that.
So if you're doing root 3rd, 1, 3, 5, and 7, you could choose a voicing that has one of those intervallic functions, the first one, in the bass.
That's,
so
that's a great idea. I genuinely haven't thought of that at all. That's a brilliant idea.
You could both practice and interact, both getting. Obviously, it's not going to be checking and listening to that, but you could just be. You know, it's that sort of spark of like making you think, as opposed to just like playing your bar chords from the or whatever it might be.
And he's literally just come with that on the spot. That's amazing.
I'm proud of myself now.
That's great. No, that's really good. So what are we going to set up? What are you going to practice here for this?
I don't know. What should we do?
It's entirely up to you. I mean, let's do something relatively straightforward. So if anybody's new to solo, they can get an idea with something simple. We could do something more complex later. I think the important thing here is to show you how this would work, because a lot of you will be used to accompanying with some rhythmic framework in time. You know, you don't need to do that here, so you can be a little bit more free, or what they would call rubato with your accompaniment approach.
Well, let's just keep it simple to the old favourite then, the demo tune. The official
Leaves.
Solo demo tune.
Yeah.
And what should we do? 1, 3, 5, 7 and
let's keep it simple. Okay. I'm just going to keep things very simple from an accompaniment perspective to start with as well, so I'm not going to do anything crazy. And again, because it's only listening to Beebee, you know, don't worry about what you're playing here as long as it fits with the stuff. You know, you're providing a harmonic framework and context for his intervallic functions effectively.
So in terms of the setup here, so I've gone into level and we've chosen root 3, 5, 7, and then we've got autumn leaves as the chord changes, and then in the workout options, we've stuck this on random. It's going to randomize those intervallic functions, and that can also, Tom can play a chord voicing from the first one, and then we're just going to hit start changes workout. Okay.
Yep. Now before he starts, as you can see here, it doesn't matter what I play, because effectively, you know, it's only listening to him, and that's really important. That's why you need to use an audio interface. So when he's ready, I'll start, you know, just playing some chords for him. Very simple.
Okay.
So again, from a chordal perspective, I started out very, very simple, and nothing was too complex anyway, but you don't have to literally play the chord that's written. If you're more advanced, you can get as advanced as you like. So if it says C minor 7, feel free to play C minor 11 or C minor 9 or some kind of really nice little voicing that you know. Whatever it is that you want to play, you can play it so long as it's the right accompaniment for what he's playing. And of course, in that context, what's happening is you are hearing, and he is hearing your accompaniment. Your practice partner is hearing all of those notes with the correct harmonic context, which is very, very good for your ears. So it's a really, really useful way to practice. Now, you could, of course, do this with any of the tunes that are built into solo, any of the levels as well. Mm-hmm. But where this might be significantly trickier for some of you guys, depending on where you're at in your theory journey, is with the scale trainer, because we don't give you chord types to play over each of the scales. But if you are more advanced and you go into the scale trainer, if you do know what chord types fit with particular scales, your chord scale theory, if you like, obviously feel free to go through and work on that as well. Now, we're not going to teach you that in this video. This is more of a kind of giving you some ideas, ways you can practice. But of course, this will expand into that scale trainer as well if you wanted to. A really quick thing as well, which is really, really useful. If you wanted to, you could absolutely do this with any instrument that will plug into an audio interface. So again, we're using guitars here. Not only the accompaniment instrument doesn't have to be a guitar, but if you've got a keyboard, for example, or some kind of digital instrument that will plug into an audio interface, a bass, for example, will work great. Anything that you can DI or any kind of digital instrument like a keyboard or whatever will work great with this as well. So if you've got somebody you want to practice with that is not necessarily another guitar player, this is not just limited to guitarists that you can do this with, which I think is quite important to kind of think about.
Yeah. On that note about instrument selection, get a few support requests about this, but you can change within the settings, if you're using solo, where are we? The instrument selection, we've got various different settings here that solo will slightly optimize towards what it's listening to. If it's an instrument that's not on that list, you can just select concert pitch, and that's, I guess, the default that would be applied to most things.
The only other scenario I could think of where you might want to do this, where it would be very difficult to get this to work, would be if you're a horn player, for example, and you want to use solo, because we do have options for horn players.
That's a good point, yeah.
What you absolutely could do, if you go into the settings again, you can do B flat and E flat. Now, of course, what's going to be very difficult if you are a sax player or some kind of a horn player is that you don't have a way of DIing the sound of your instrument in. But there is a way around this. If you both wear a pair of headphones that are plugged into an audio interface and the guitarist or the keyboard player is plugged into that audio interface, so their sound is not coming out in the room, then obviously solo can't hear the guitarist so long as they're not loud in the room, and of course keyboards don't make any noise. If you both wear the headphones, it's absolutely definite that your sax or trumpet is going to be loud enough for you to hear through those headphones. But of course, solo's only going to be listening to you, not to the guitarist or to the keyboard player. So that's a way around it. It's not something that's going to be as solid as if you were using an audio interface with another guitarist and being completely isolated. But you can try it and see if it works. So if you are a horn player, you're not completely left out of this equation.
Okay, that just about wraps up this video lesson for this week's video on the Solo YouTube channel. If you've enjoyed it, click the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon to be notified of when we post new content. If you don't have Solo yet, then you can get it on the iOS App Store and on the Google Play Store. The links are in the description below. And hope you've got a lot out of this. It's pluck up the courage to find a practice partner and get to it. There's tons of great things that you can do, and we're going to be doing more of these in a series of these practice session videos. So until the next one, bye-bye.
See you later, guys.